He said it so casually that for a moment my brain refused to attach meaning to the words. Don't bring up marriage again. I don't want people thinking I'm settling. The sentence hung in the air between us, suspended like dust in a beam of candlelight. Then he laughed a sharp, condescending sound that felt like an unexpected slap. A few heads turned. His shoulders shook with amusement, as if he'd just delivered the punchline of some carefully crafted joke. I stared at him across the table at the smooth, dark wood of Ponte, at the flicker of the candle we had been ignoring all evening, at the silver bracelet I wore, the one he'd given me last year, glinting under the dim lights. It felt suddenly absurdly heavy around my wrist. I'd made this reservation a week in advance. He'd wanted to try this place. I'd spent the past 3 days working up the courage to bring up rings. Not a proposal, just possibility. A gentle step forward after 4 years of building a life together. Instead, I was staring at a man laughing at the idea of committing to me. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The pasta cooled, my hand trembled, what my voice barely escaped. He took another sip of his Pinot Noir, still smiling. You heard me. All that future talk. It's so final, Anita. So official. His tone made it sound like official was synonymous with claustrophobic. My brain scrambled, desperate to frame this as a misunderstanding, a misheard line, a bad joke. I leaned forward slightly, lowering my voice. I was just talking about building a life together. You know, a future, a family. He sighed, not gently, not thoughtfully, but the way a parent sighs when a child asks for the 20th time if they're there yet. Oh God, Anita, not this again. His lips curled. Our life is fine. It's great. Why do we need to put a label on it? Why does everything have to be permanent with you? A cold knot tightened in my stomach, pulling everything down with it. Because I love you, I whispered. The admission tasted small, suddenly fragile. I thought we both wanted that. He leaned forward, voice lowering to a cruel little whisper. Look, you're amazing. You're comfortable. You're stable, but marriage. Then he laughed again, that terrible piercing laugh. Come on, Anita. I don't want people thinking I'm settling. As he leaned back, amusement flooded his eyes, like he'd said something witty, something charming, as if his friends would high-five him for it. As if the idea of marrying me was some ridiculous rumor that needed clarifying. The word settling detonated inside my chest. Suddenly, I was the before picture in a makeover montage, the placeholder girlfriend, the woman you date until something shinier shows up. I looked at him properly. Then the man I'd spent holidays with, nursed through fevers, cheered through promotions, his perfect haircut, his perfectly curated smile, his perfectly rehearsed nonchalance, and underneath all of it, the unwavering certainty that he deserved better. The restaurant noise faded into a distant rush, jazz dissolving into static conversations, turning into a dull roar, plates clinking somewhere unreachable. Every piece of our 4-year relationship shattered quietly like thin glass in warm hands. I didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't ask him to reconsider. There was nothing left to ask. I caught the waiter's eye, made a quick scribbling motion. He nodded. What Daniel finally said, the smile slipping as my silence stretched. You're not going to be weird about this, right? Weird as if humiliation was a small inconvenience I was supposed to swallow gracefully. I stared at him, expression-neutral, voice numb. The waiter laid the check on the table. I reached for my wallet, slid my card inside, and handed it back without looking at the total. Anita, Daniel said sharply. Seriously, talk to me. I stood. The chair scraped against the terracotta tiles, a sound I felt in my bones. Where are you going? His voice cracked, slightly surprise, rippling through it. I finally met his eyes, and in the calmest tone I'd ever used with him, I said, Say no more. I understand everything perfectly now. And then I walked out. I didn't rush, didn't look back. Just walked through the restaurant, past the flickering candles and soft music, and stunned diners, feeling every inch of myself reconstructing from the inside out. Humiliation had burned the ground clean. What grew next would be different. The drive home was silent, the hum of the engine, the soft of passing streetlights, and Daniel sitting rigid beside me, arms crossed, jaw tense, staring out the window. His anger radiated like heat from a stove. I could feel it prickling against my skin. Are you really going to be like this? He finally snapped as I pulled into our parking spot. Sulking because I was honest. I turned off the engine. The sudden quiet in the car was absolute. I looked at him, really looked. It was like seeing him through fresh glass. No distortions, no excuses. This wasn't a man who felt remorse. This was a man annoyed his toy had stopped working properly. I'm not sulking, I said evenly. It was the truth. Then what do you call this? He demanded the silent treatment. Real, mature Anita. I didn't reply. I opened the door and stepped out. Behind me, his door slammed with childish force. Inside the apartment, everything felt wrong. The couch we picked together, the plants we hung by the window, the throw blanket his mother had knitted, all props, all scenery. The play was over. I stood there in the dim light, feeling the last pieces of the life I'd built with him shift under my feet. Tomorrow everything would change, but he didn't know that yet. The next morning, I woke before my alarm. I didn't really sleep more, like floated in that strange numb limbo between dreams and consciousness, where nothing hurts yet because nothing feels real. Daniel's back was to me. The blanket pulled up to his shoulders, breathing slow and even peaceful, untouched, unbothered. I sat up, moved quietly, showered, dressed. My emotions felt detached, precise, almost mechanical. I didn't want to wake him, not because I feared confrontation, but because I didn't have anything left to say. As I tied my shoes, I felt his eyes on me. He rolled over, face creased with sleep, voice groggy, in that practiced way of someone used to being the one with the upper hand. Are you going to be a baby about this all day? The words slid off his tongue with casual cruelty. I straightened, looking at him fully. There was no anger in me, not anymore, just clarity. A wide, cold, silent clarity, stretching across my mind like a fresh sheet of ice. No, I said quietly. Say no more. I understand everything perfectly now. His brow furrowed. Anita. But I shook my head. I grabbed my laptop bag, my keys, and walked out. I didn't kiss him goodbye. I didn't wait for him to respond. I didn't look back. Work was a blur. I attended meetings, nodded at all the right times, replied to emails. My body sat in my chair, but my mind was elsewhere. Disassembling the past 4 years, piece by piece, with a cold, methodical resolve. By lunchtime, I still hadn't eaten. Hunger didn't register. Only strategy did. I picked up my phone and called the one person who never sugarcoated things, who didn't perform friendship, but lived it. Maya, she answered on the second ring. Hey girl, what's up? Her voice was bright, warm, the sound of safe harbor. I didn't bother softening the truth. I need a favor, I said. Can I stay with you for a bit? Her tone shifted instantly, concern sharp and direct. What happened? I stared at the wall, tracing the cracks in the paint with my eyes. Daniel told me last night he doesn't want to get married because he doesn't want people thinking he's settling. Silence heavy, stunned, furious. Are you kidding me? Maya finally breathed. He said that to you? I didn't answer. She didn't need confirmation. Get over here tonight, she said firmly. I don't care if you need the couch for a week or a year. Just come. Thank you, I whispered. No thank you, she corrected, for finally choosing yourself. A small breath escaped me, something between relief and grief. After the call ended, the decision was sealed. I wasn't going home tonight. At 6 p.m., I texted Daniel, working late. Don't wait up. It was the first and last lie I'd tell him. I drove straight to Maya's. As soon as I arrived, she pulled me into a hug that cracked something open inside me. For a brief moment, I felt the ache I'd been holding back. Sit, she said softly. I'll get you tea or wine. Actually, wine. We laughed weakly. She handed me a glass and sat beside me, letting me talk only when I was ready. When I finished recounting the night before, Maya shook her head slowly. Anita, you deserve someone who celebrates you, not someone who's embarrassed by you, not someone who treats you like a downgrade. Her words hit something deep, something raw. I took a long swallow of wine, set the glass down, and whispered, I'm done, Maya, really done. Good, she said. Now show him what silence sounds like. The corner of my mouth lifted. I opened my laptop, It wasn't revenge. It wasn't pettiness. It was reclamation. I pulled up Tinder. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, then began typing. Easygoing woman who loves hiking horror movies and strong coffee. Looking to meet new people and see where things go. No theatrics, no curated persona, just me, unfiltered. I chose a picture from a hiking trip with Maya Sunny. Candid real. A version of myself Daniel never appreciated because it didn't fit his aesthetic. When I hit complete profile, it felt like taking a full breath after holding it for years. For the next few days, I became a ghost in my own apartment. I timed my returns between Daniel's shifts. When he was at work or out with friends, I moved quickly, quietly, gathering the pieces of my life that were mine alone. My documents, my books, my grandfather's watch, my favorite sweaters, 2/3 of my clothes, the mugs I loved. I left the furniture, the shared decor, the plates and glasses and throw pillows. Those were relics of a life I was already abandoning. On the fourth day, I took the final box. The apartment looked strangely intact, even though the soul had been lifted out of it piece by piece. I placed my key on the kitchen counter, right beside the fruit bowl he insisted made us look like a proper couple. How ironic. I paused for a single breath, then I walked out, and the door clicked shut behind me, like a period at the end of a very long sentence. 1 hour later, as I unpacked at Maya's, my phone buzzed. A Tinder notification. You have a new match. A flicker of something small, unfamiliar fluttered in my chest. Possibility. 5 seconds later came the second notification. A text from Daniel. What the hell is this? Is this a joke? You're on Tinder? I stared at the message, at the fury, at the disbelief, at the entitlement. For the first time in years, I felt absolutely nothing. Not guilt, not fear, not sadness, not satisfaction, just quiet. I put my phone down and kept unpacking. The silence was my sanctuary. Over the next 2 weeks, the texts came in waves. Day 2, you're seriously doing this. Over one conversation. Day 5, my friends say you're being dramatic. Honestly, I agree. Day 7, you're being a narcissist. This is classic discard behavior. Day 9, you left your stupid hiking boots. I'm donating them. Don't care. I read every message. I didn't block him. Letting the storm rage without responding was its own kind of grounding. Watching the tone shift from rage to guilt to confusion to desperation felt like watching a weather system collapse in slow motion. It wasn't cruelty. It was data. It was clarity. It was freedom. 2 weeks in, Maya came home with takeout and found me sitting on the couch surrounded by apartment listings. You ready? She asked, handing me noodles. I nodded. I found a small, clean one-bedroom across the city and signed a 6-month lease. The walls were bare. The air smelled like paint and new beginnings. It was mine. I moved in with 3 boxes of mattress and no expectations. It felt like breathing. My new apartment was quiet in a way that felt almost sacred. No footsteps pacing, no passive-aggressive sighs, no tension ricocheting off the walls. Just silence, calm, warm, steady. I placed my 3 boxes against the wall and sat on the floor leaning back against the mattress. The emptiness didn't feel lonely. It felt like the first inhale after years of shallow breathing. That night, I slept deeply for the first time since everything shattered at Ponte. The next morning, Daniel's texts continued. It started with annoyance. Daniel, 8:01 a.m. Wow, so you're really doing this running away? Then indignation. Daniel, 9:14 a.m. You're being immature, Anita. Seriously, grow up. Then psychological projection. Daniel, 11:37 a.m. My friends think you've been unstable for a while. This proves it. Then guilt. Daniel, 1:09 p.m. After everything I did for you, you're unbelievable. Then silence for a few hours. Anyway, by late afternoon, he spiraled into the next stage. Daniel, 4:22 p.m. So that's it. You're not even going to respond. I didn't. I was in my new place, kneeling on the floor assembling a small desk I found secondhand. My tools clinked softly, the evening light filtered through my window casting peaceful shadows. Every few minutes, my phone buzzed. I ignored it. When the desk legs finally aligned and tightened into place, I sat back and admired it. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't expensive, but it was mine. No arguments about the color. No comments about aesthetic. No judgment. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was gentle, a soft, warm presence sitting with me in the room. A few days later, I went on my first official post-breakup coffee date. His name was Evan, a soft-spoken teacher with kind eyes and an easy smile. We'd matched on Tinder after a brief exchange about horror movies. At the cafe, he held the door open for me, without theatrical flourish, just simple, sincere manners. We talked about books, about hiking, about terrible movies we secretly loved. When he laughed, his eyes crinkled. When he listened, he leaned in slightly. He didn't talk over me. He didn't dismiss my jokes. He didn't treat conversation like a competition. It wasn't lightning. It wasn't romance. It wasn't meant to be. It was just human warm normal. When the date ended, I didn't float home or dream about him. But for the first time in a long time, I felt seen without being judged. That alone was healing. Meanwhile, silence had become Daniel's worst enemy, and I was giving it to him freely. He tried a new tactic. Anger sharpened into accusation. Daniel, day 12, 9:47 p.m. So who is he? The guy you matched with? You moved on that fast. I muted his notifications. The next morning, Daniel, 10:23 a.m. Unbelievable! Seriously, after 4 years, you're going to ghost me like this. What kind of person does that? I made coffee and sat by the window, sipping slowly. His words didn't burrow under my skin like they once would have. They floated on the surface of my mind like dead leaves. The silence wasn't passive. It was powerful. A boundary, a choice. At work, my boss stopped by my desk one afternoon. "You've been firing on all cylinders lately, Anita," he said. "Keep it up." It was the first compliment in months that felt like it belonged to me, not shared with a partner who would take credit or diminish it. The boost of momentum was palpable. I threw myself into my projects, rediscovered my confidence, and found myself smiling more. Freedom, it turned out, looked good on me. 3 weeks after I left Daniel, the call came. My phone lit up with his name. I let it ring. Once, twice, 4 times. Then, driven by curiosity, not fear, I answered. "Anita." His voice was tight, trying to sound calm. "We need to talk." "I'm here," I said neutrally. "You completely overreacted," he began. I could almost picture him rubbing the back of his neck the way he did when trying to appear earnest. "What I said at the restaurant came out wrong. You know I love you." The words were clear, I said, and the laugh was clearer. A sharp inhale. He hadn't expected that. "So you're just going to throw away 4 years because of one sentence?" His tone sharpened. "You're that fragile." "It wasn't one sentence," I said quietly. "It was a truth I needed to hear." Silence. He opened his mouth closed. It tried to recalibrate, but I didn't give him time. "Thank you," I added, for what he snapped. "For the clarity." And I hung up. No drama, no fight, just the end. I imagined him staring at his phone, realizing tears and logic wouldn't work anymore. The shift in power wasn't triumphant. It was simply factual. I wasn't his audience anymore. A week later came the voicemail. The sobbing, the trembling voice, the desperation. "Anita, please. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I was stupid. I was scared. I was scared. Okay, I do want to marry you. I was just afraid of what people would think. That's my issue, not yours. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Please pick up. Please." I listened once and deleted it. Not out of cruelty, but because it wasn't mine to carry anymore. His pain wasn't my responsibility. His realization wasn't my victory. His regret wasn't my closure. I had left for a reason, and that reason was still true. Then came the final stage. Rage. Unfiltered, unrestrained, flailing rage. Friday, 9 to 14 p.m. "My friends say you must have been cheating. Were you?" "Just say it." 9:47 p.m. "You're a coward, a spineless coward who can't even talk like an adult." 10:23 p.m. "Fine, if I don't hear from you tonight, we're done forever. Don't call me, don't show up." "We are done." I read the last line twice. A faint smile tugged at my lips. He was trying to break up with me, trying to reclaim control over a story whose ending I'd already written, rehearsed, and walked away from. He couldn't understand that I was gone emotionally, mentally, and physically. There was no relationship left to destroy. It was already buried. I placed my phone face down, picked up the novel on my nightstand, and spent the rest of my evening in peaceful silence. No tension, no fear, no walking on eggshells, just me and the quiet. And the quiet was enough. 3 months after I walked out of Ponte, I found myself standing at the edge of Tom and Sierra's backyard, a cold drink in my hand, surrounded by the low hum of a summer barbecue. It smelled like grilled corn, sunscreen, and freshly cut grass scents that usually meant peace, freedom, normalcy. I almost declined the invitation, not because I feared running into Daniel, though I knew it was possible, but because some part of me still felt odd about stepping back into our shared social circle as just me. Not half of a couple, not Anita and Daniel, just Anita Binder on my own. But Tom was a good friend, and Maya had said, "Girl hiding makes it look like you did something wrong." And she was right. So I went. The sun was setting, streaking the sky in orange and gold. Music drifted softly from a Bluetooth speaker on the patio. People mingled in small groups, laughing, drinking, moving easily from one conversation to another. I stood near the fence, sipping my drink, watching the kids chase each other through the yard with glow sticks. For a moment, I felt something settle peacefully inside me, a wordless reassurance. I'm okay. I made it out. I'm building something new. I brushed my hair behind my ear and caught my reflection in the glass sliding door. I barely recognized myself. My shoulders were relaxed. My skin glowed from weekend hikes. My expression wasn't tight or guarded. It was open, peaceful. And then I saw him. Daniel. He stood near the food table, holding a plastic cup of wine. He wasn't alone. Sierra was talking to him, nodding politely, but his body was angled toward the yard, his eyes scanning. Searching for me. The breath in my chest didn't hitch or stutter. It simply shifted, adjusting to the moment. The way you adjust to a sudden shadow passing overhead. I watched him quietly from across the yard. He looked smaller, thinner, paler, like someone who hadn't slept deeply in months. His smile was wrong, too wide, too forced. And for the first time, I saw the strain around his eyes, fine lines of worry, stress unraveling. His gaze swept over the guests, skimming past them, past Tom, past Maya, until it landed on me. His eyes widened in a flash of shock, then flicked away, then snapped back, frantic, almost hungry. I gave him a small, polite nod. The kind you give an acquaintance, not an ex, who once held your heart. Then I turned back to my conversation with Tom, who had wandered over with a plate of grilled vegetables. "Glad you made it," Tom said. "You look good." "I feel good," I answered honestly, really good. It wasn't a performance. It wasn't fake. It was the truth. But I could feel Daniel's gaze burning into my back like hot light through glass. For the next hour, I mingled. I laughed at Tom's terrible jokes about his malfunctioning grill. I complimented Sierra's garden. I helped a toddler pick up a spilled cup of juice. I chatted with Maya and her girlfriend about their upcoming trip. I was present, engaged, alive. And all the while, I felt Daniel orbiting around me, circling closer, lingering at the edges of conversations, drifting near the cooler, pretending to refill his cup while his attention never truly left me. A disintegrating satellite pulled by a gravity it no longer understood. He finally cornered me when I walked toward the far side of the deck to grab another drink from the cooler. The area was quieter there, shielded by the house and a row of hanging plants. I knelt and lifted the cooler lid, hearing footsteps approach. I didn't turn around, didn't tense, didn't brace myself. I felt ready. "Anita." His voice was soft, too soft, unsteady. I turned. The first thing I noticed was the strain, the tightness around his mouth, the slight tremble in his hand as he held his cup, the haunted look in his eyes. "Daniel," I said calmly, setting the bottle cap aside. He studied my face like he was trying to reconcile the woman he saw now with the woman he remembered. "You look good," he said, his voice cracked. "Really good." I nodded. "Thanks. You too." It was a social nicety, automatic and hollow. He didn't look good, not at all. He swallowed hard, then plunged forward. I meant what I said in my messages. The tremor in his voice was unmistakable. I was an idiot. A complete idiot. I've been miserable, Anita. I took a small sip of my drink. The condensation on the bottle felt cool against my fingers. I'm sorry to hear that. The words were correct, polite, but they carried no sympathy, no emotional weight, no sense of responsibility for his misery. His face crumpled slightly at my tone, as if I delivered a gentle but deliberate blow. Everything fell apart after you left, he said. His voice cracked again. I just didn't realize how much I relied on you, how much I... He broke off, waiting for me to rescue him, with a question waiting for me to soften to help him articulate his own regret. I just waited. The silence stretched. Finally, he blurted, I do want to marry you. I didn't react. I was just scared. He rushed on. Scared of what people would think. It was my own issue, not yours. You have to believe me. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. There it was, the full circle script, the same one delivered in his voicemail, now uttered in person. Desperate, hollow, late. I looked at him, this man who once held my heart in his hands, this man who laughed at the idea of committing to me, this man who called me comfortable, like I was an old sweater he didn't mind wearing in private. I felt something for him. Not love, not anger, not longing. Pity, soft, distant pity for the man he had chosen to be. It's funny, you know, I said quietly. He blinked, confused. What is that night at the restaurant? I said, you were so terrified of settling. And it made me realize something. I paused, letting the truth settle like dust. I was settling too. He stared at me, stunned. What, he whispered. I was settling for someone who treated my love like an embarrassment, for someone who cared more about his friends' opinions than my heart, for someone who made me feel small so he could feel bigger. A muscle in his jaw twitched. I decided I won't do that anymore. Color drained from his face. He hadn't prepared for this outcome. His script didn't cover this response. His eyes darted wildly, searching for a weapon, and found one. He glanced toward the patio, where Evan stood talking to Sierra. Evan caught my eye at that moment and gave me a small smile. Easy, warm, genuine. Daniel seized on it. So what, you're dating now? He snapped, bitterness flooding his voice. That guy, he's a rebound. You don't get over 4 years and 3 months. I looked toward Evan briefly, then back at Daniel. Actually, I said softly, I'm not dating anyone seriously. I let the next words fall gently, but with the weight of a final verdict. I'm just happy. That single word, happy, landed between us like a stone. I'm building a life where I don't have to worry about being someone's embarrassment, I continued. It's peaceful. I set my empty bottle on the railing. I hope you find what you're looking for, Daniel. Truly. But we're done here. I turned to walk away. Halfway across the deck, Evan glanced at me, smiled, and raised his drink in a subtle cheers. Behind me, I heard Daniel's voice crack into one last desperate attempt at control. A broken whisper disguised as a shout. You were my safe bet. I didn't stop. I didn't turn. I didn't respond. I simply walked toward warmth, laughter, possibility, and left Daniel standing alone by the cooler. A fading chapter. A quiet lesson. A story I had finally outgrown. Daniel's voice. You were my safe bet. Faded behind me like the last echo of a storm already moving out to sea. I didn't turn around. I didn't flinch. I didn't even walk faster. I simply kept moving toward the patio lights, toward the soft hum of conversation, toward the gentle smile Evan gave me as I approached. Not because I needed him, not because he represented a rebound or validation, but because walking towards someone who radiated calm felt better than standing in the shadow of someone who radiated chaos. Everything okay? Evan asked softly, taking in the tension still rippling faintly from behind me. Actually, I said, letting out a slow breath. Yes, everything's okay. He nodded with effortless understanding, not prying, not pushing, just listening, presenting real. We fell into casual conversation books. We loved hikes we wanted to try. Why Sierra insisted on having 3 different types of hummus at every party. It wasn't anything profound. It wasn't meant to be, but the simplicity of it felt grounding. Every laugh felt genuine. Every pause felt natural. Nothing was forced. And as we talked, I realized something important. My heart wasn't broken. It was free. For the first time in years, I didn't feel weighed down by expectations, insecurity, fear of saying the wrong thing. I did not feel the pressure of being enough. I simply existed fully, comfortably, unafraid. The barbecue began to wind down around 11 p.m. Parents gathered, sleepy kids, couples packed leftovers. Sierra handed out Tupperware to anyone who walked within 5 feet of her. Tom tried to convince us all he hadn't accidentally burnt the first batch of burgers, while Mia loudly reminded him, "Dude, we saw smoke for 20 minutes." I hugged Maya goodbye, her hold warm, steady, full of the kind of support that asked for nothing in return. "Call me if you need anything," she said. "I will, and thank you for everything." "You did this," she corrected gently. "Not me." I smiled and stepped away. Evan lingered nearby. "You heading home?" he asked. "Yeah, early morning tomorrow." He hesitated, then spoke with surprising vulnerability. "I really enjoyed talking to you tonight. No pressure, but if you ever want to grab coffee again, I'd like that." There was no suggestion of urgency, no suggestion of possession, just an honest offering of time. "I'd like that too," I said. He grinned. "Good. I'll text you." We said goodnight. He walked toward his car, and I toward mine. The cool night air brushed across my skin as I stepped onto the sidewalk. Crickets hummed in the quiet, and the soft glow of porch lights flickered across the street. Peace wrapped itself around me like a blanket. But behind me, under the dim backyard lights, Daniel remained frozen in place, still standing near the cooler, looking small, bewildered, cornered by the consequences of his own choices. I didn't look at him, but I felt the moment with perfect clarity. He was no longer a threat, no longer a wound, no longer a gravitational force I needed to navigate around. He was simply irrelevant. A closed chapter. When I got home, I kicked off my sandals and walked barefoot across the cool wood floor. My small apartment was quiet, the windows open to a soft breeze that carried the faint scent of midnight rain. I placed my purse on the kitchen counter and pulled a bottle of water from the fridge. As I leaned against the counter, something flickered inside me, a blend of relief-exhaustion and something softer, pride. Not the kind built on spite, not the kind born from looking back at someone else's ruin. This was the pride that came from recognizing myself again, from remembering who I was before I let someone else's insecurities shrink me, from knowing I'd chosen myself fully and finally, with no hesitation. I didn't need a dramatic confrontation at the barbecue. I didn't need a grand speech or revenge-worthy moment. I didn't need him to hurt. What I needed, what I'd been craving without realizing, was peace. And peace was mine now. It was in the quiet, in the stillness, in the simplicity of making decisions without fear, in the joy of rediscovering what I liked, what I wanted, what made me feel alive. I walked into the bedroom and sat on the edge of my bed. The night breeze stirred the curtains, brushing against my skin, like a soft reminder that the world was bigger than the four walls I once felt trapped in. I thought of the woman I had been at Ponte, the night everything changed. A woman waiting for permission to dream bigger, for validation to want a future. A woman who believed compromise meant shrinking herself into whatever shape someone else needed. That woman was gone. In her place stood someone new. Someone still healing, still growing, still learning, but firmly rooted in her own worth. I lay back and stared at the ceiling, letting the quiet settle over me. At some point, tears slipped down my temples, not from sadness, but from an overwhelming sense of release, of gratitude, of relief. I wiped them away with a small laugh. Then my phone buzzed. A message. My stomach didn't twist. My heart didn't jump. My breath didn't hitch, because I already knew who it wasn't. It wasn't Daniel. It was Evan. Evan just wanted to say, "I'm glad I saw you tonight. Sleep well." I smiled at the screen, small, real, gentle, and set the phone aside. No rush, no pressure, no expectations, just possibility. The next morning, I woke to sunlight trickling across my face. Birds chirped outside the window. The world felt soft open, welcoming. I made coffee and stepped onto my tiny balcony, watching the city. Wake-up cars rolling down the street. Distant barking dogs, the rumble of early buses. Life. Ordinary, beautiful life. It felt like a gift. A few hours later, Maya texted, "Maya, how was last night? Did Daniel combust into flames? Should I check for volcanic ash in Sierra's backyard?" I laughed, typing back, "Me no combustion, just endings, real ones." "Maya, good. You deserve beginnings." My chest warmed. She was right. Later that evening, I sat at my desk, the one I'd assembled with my own hands, and opened my laptop to work on a project. As the cursor blinked on the blank document, I realized something. I wasn't waiting for anything now. Not an apology, not closure, not validation, not permission. I had already given myself everything I'd been asking from Daniel for years: respect, kindness, patience, care, understanding value. That was the ultimate twist, the real revelation. He was never the one I needed to win back. I was, and I had completely. That's my story. It didn't end in flames or chaos. It didn't end in grand gestures or fiery revenge. It ended in something far more powerful: peace, freedom, self-respect, and the beginning of a life where I finally felt whole.